Hello, community! Can you guys hear me? It's good to see so many of you here today, and how excited you are. Okay, there you are. Well, I know you're eager to hear some information about the new class reveal in the trio and also the beta aspect. So we're going to do these in two parts. First, we're going to go to MJ. He's going to tell you all about the class info that you've been longing for. So take it away.
Hey guys, so to begin with, this is only going to be an hour stream, and the stream is going to be broken up into two parts. The first part, we'll be talking about classes. What will happen is we'll obviously reveal the trio. We will then take questions about the trio, about the information that it will be up on the web page in seconds, and that will last a half hour. After that, we'll then move on to beta. Same format. Ben and I will talk about beta. Then there'll be a Q&A. There'll be a Q&A for the first one, because we are certainly not talking just ourselves for a half hour about the first trio. So again, first trio reveal, we'll talk about it for a little bit, then go to QA, then beta reveal, talk about it for a little bit, then a half hour and maybe a little longer Q&A. So I think that's it, right, Ben?
Yep, I think we're ready to go.
Okay, so first, thanks. We got a whole bunch of survey responses, and we really appreciate it, of course. You guys are kind of picking the order that you like, and that's the whole point. And just as we said the last time, this has no effect whatsoever on which classes and which trio we're going to work on first. This is solely for you guys and gals to get information about the trio. So, without any further ado, the winner was, camera just went out.
I'm showing them the website. It's okay. Not the reveal, just the website.
Okay. The winning trio was, of course, as everyone expected on the forums, I. No, it wasn't I. The winner, of course, was B. So, Genesee, show them B, please.
Mm-hmm. They can see the.
They can see the trio?
They can see the trio.
Okay, so the archetype name for this trio is called the Devout. And while I think Ben and I would love to say we came up with that idea, we did not. We were working with the team, see what ideas were good. We had a whole bunch of different names for the archetype, because the archetype that I wanted, people were like, no, we need a new name. And thanks to the teamwork of Max and Bull, who went from Devoted to now Devout, that is the name of the archetype. Each one of those classes, if you are hopefully over on the website now, if you click on them, it will show you, at least for now, the information that we're going to share with you guys about each one of the classes. So go to the website, look at them, look at what we are going to be talking about for the next few minutes, and then turn it over to Q&A. The Devout are a hybrid hero, I guess would be the best way to put them.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Well, so this is actually one of our hybrid classes, which was something we previously said we're not really doing when we're having fewer classes, because we were having paths that were sort of hybridizing things and blending them a bit more. This is a dedicated class that is a hybrid there between healing and sort of a mage class primarily. And each one plays a little differently and has different mechanics, which we'll get into here in just a minute.
So as you guys who have been following the Kickstarter, and even before the Kickstarter, and then after the Kickstarter, I had expressed my love for a certain class from another game called Smite Clerics. And so this would be, our version of, as Ben says, a hybrid healer. So I think that, at least we hope that this is something you folks are going to respond well to. We certainly like it. One of the things to keep in mind, the reason that we are doing this, just as we said last week, we are taking some of the paths that would have been in another class and pulling them out to a separate class. So as we were thinking about the healers, obviously we said also for more than 2 years, how important healers were going to be to the game, how important we wanted the healers to feel, frankly, or players to feel while they played healers. And by splitting them out, and in this case, moving a magical hybrid healer over to its own class, the other class that will be revealed sometime over the next 9 weeks are essentially pure healers. So again, think of this class as a hybrid, using magic as well as using weapons to fulfill their role in the game. And I think the role in the game is going to be a pretty fun one.
Yeah, this is falls along the line of one of the more complicated classes because they are a hybrid. They have to worry about both offense and defense. They have to be cognizant of healing, but not as their primary roles. They still have to pay attention to how their group is doing, and they're also trying to do damage output and disruption and some other things at the same time. So they have a lot going on. It's going to be an interesting style for a lot of people who may want more than just one specific thing to focus on.
Exactly. And if you are looking at any of the web pages for any of the trio, you'll see a lot of information there. You'll see the basic backstory for each one of the classes. You'll see a motto for the class. You'll see projected abilities and components for the class. You'll see things we talked about as well in the Kickstarter of having a death curse, or essentially a good old divine intervention, ability. So hopefully, again, you are looking at that. Please do if you can. And you'll also see, I think, the style that we want for each of the classes. Again, just as we talked about last week, we want to draw on the lore of each realm whenever possible. We already had the Hellbound. We're drawing on an abbot for the Arthurians. The Blessed Crows, which is a reference to Bran the Blessed and his name for that class. So I think you're going to see, and I hope, at least we both hope, you're going to see a lot more of that going forward. And if you look at some of the Banes and Boons and some of the death curses and the divine interventions, I think you'll see even more, of the lore that we can pull in. And I think one of my favorite of all the special abilities that Ben came up with, look at the abbot. And go to the bottom of the page for the abbot. I think you guys will get a pretty good chuckle out of that.
Yeah, we've gotten some good feedback on this one so far, so hopefully we'll have quite a bit more of that to go. And since this is the first class reveal, I just want to make sure everybody is very aware. These are just some samples of things. This is not comprehensive. These guys are going to have way more stuff. We just wanted to give you a few examples of things that we're starting to work with. They haven't even been prototyped yet. There's no balance or numbers behind any of this. And as we move forward, you will start to see these appearing when we actually get these classes into the game. But right now, these are just some samples to give you kind of some flavor and some ideas and some direction as far as picking what class you're the most interested in and are going to consider playing as you make your way of determining what character you're going to make in the game.
And as you can see from the webpage, while we do have a sample there now, as Ben says, this is going to change over time. The pages are, God, what a day. The pages are going to get even more information heavy. We've told you folks from the beginning, we're not going to be hiding information. We want you guys to know what's going on while you're testing the game, while you're getting it ready for ship. So what you're seeing now is, as Ben says, a flavor page. As a class begins to get implemented, that those pages will be expanded. More and more information will be put out for you folks to see, to digest, to theory craft with, to tell us we're being dumb with. And so this is just the start. We really want to do this for each class, and after this, certainly after both live streams, we're going to start a discussion thread on the forums. So, folks, all of you, it doesn't matter what tier you are, it doesn't matter if you're in the alpha, in the beta, any, IT, all of you guys and gals will be able to participate in an ongoing discussion, about the classes and the current direction for them.
Seems good.
All right, so let's go to Q&A.
Okay, so remember, these questions have to be about the subject we're talking about right now. We want to keep it on the Devout. So questions about the Devout, take a look at the webpage if you haven't. Ask us questions on that. Max, can you slow the chat for me, please?
So actually, before we get to the first question, should have done this. So how many folks who are listening now who can actually respond? Tell us. Thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you think about the Devout?
I have to wait a little bit because the chat is slowed.
Mhm.
Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs way up, up, up. Whoa. Re-ask your questions if you did. Wow, okay. Yeah, everyone's very excited about that. Mega up.
Mega up. All right.
Oh,
Except for
mega.
JK who says down. Oh, gotta stop now. Gotta stop. Okay, so now... No, I'm not gonna count them. I'm not gonna count them, Godslayering. All right, so ask your questions. Okay, Baby Chaos. Baby Chaos, it's going so fast. Question, the images show dual... Stop! The images show dual flails. I think there's a question about flails. Let me find it again. Everybody's scrolling so quickly. Oh yeah, the images show dual flail. Will this be a valid option for only the abbot, or will this be a choice for all classes? The abbot shows a flail, but mentions staves. They're asking about flails.
Right. So the bottom line is, if we put in the mechanic that you can dual wield, certainly like we've talked about for other, for any of the classes or even the archetypes, will you be able to do wield if you're not an abbot? Absolutely. But you won't have the special abilities. And that's the key. Can you pick up 2 flails? Absolutely. Why not? Will you be any good with them? Not as good as the class that has the abilities or the components and the styles that are designed for them. No different than if a mage picks up a sword. Can they swing a sword? Absolutely. Can they swing a staff? Absolutely. But the classes that have the components, those are the ones who are going to be best at it.
Drakkar D0456 asks, will these guys be able to be specialized into being a full tank with healing abilities?
Not a full tank in that they won't have a lot of the same protection abilities and group defense abilities that actual tanks have, because tanks are a separate trio that we'll get into later. They can be fairly defensive, and anytime you have a character that can heal, if they have a good amount of healing that they apply to themselves, they can be fairly survivable, but that doesn't necessarily fulfill the full role of a tank. It just means that they're hard to kill.
Flying Dutchman 87 asks, how long did it take to come up with the ability name for Blood to Beer?
Naming, somewhat ironically, naming is one of the harder parts of actually doing a lot of these design, because a lot of the mechanics, you lay out in a much earlier form and kind of go through and break them down into individual ability components, but then you have to go through and name everything, and naming a lot of the time is where you get a lot of the agonizing over trying to find the right words and phrasing of stuff. So that is actually one of the parts in design that people tend to get hung up on and tends to take more time than you would think.
Manolin123 asks, what's the role of hybrid healer in RVR? They need to find groups.
All right. So your hybrid healers are going to either be for a more offensively oriented group, might be your main healer. If you're really focused on just dealing as much damage as possible, these guys are going to contribute damage. And so even if they're primarily healing focused in their activities, their inherent damage ability means that they will fit into a more offensively oriented group. Into a more balanced group, they're probably going to fulfill more of the role of a secondary healer. When your main healer is getting focused and has to focus on keeping themselves alive, or if they go down or whatever, or if your group is taking a lot of damage and you have to help support your main healer in increasing the healing output, you can switch from being offensive to being defensive, so they can sort of fill a little bit of the gaps here and there as sort of a secondary role in either doing damage or doing healing. So they help, fill a gap that you might not otherwise have if you went with either another full healer or another full damage dealer.
This may be specific, or they may be asking about the type, but Adria Cortesia asks, what is the weapon called the Blessed Crow uses? Not sure if they're asking for the type of weapon, or if they're asking for a specific name.
Oh, okay. Well, I think they're talking about what he has in the concept,
I think so,
which
too.
is that he has a cauldron sort of on a stick hanging from a chain, which there isn't a specific name for. That's just a concept art piece of what that could look like. His main thing is that he has a cauldron, which is something that he can carry around with him and put down and have multiples of and sort of deploy in a arrangement in an area and do various things with. But how he's going to exactly carry that around with and what the mechanism is, that's not a specific object or item or anything that we've created. That's just one of the concepts for how we're going to eventually deliver that in the game, and we haven't really got that entirely sorted out yet. It's just a cool concept that we have of it right now.
Defool11 asks, since they are hybrid, will they be able to ever do as much healing as a pure healer or as much damage as a pure DPS if the player desires?
My gut is no. I mean, if they were as powerful as a pure healer or as powerful as a pure tank and as great at healing as a pure healer, even if they were fully spec'd, I think that would take away from the role of the pure healer.
Yeah, it sort of depends how you mean by that. If you mean over a duration, I would say no. In specific instances, if they're trying to burst, if they have like the Abbot specifically has a sort of a bunch of stacking buffs and procs and things. So if he can get stacked up, he can do some pretty good either damage or healing over a short amount of time, but he can't sustain that the same way that a pure healer or a pure DPS could.
And it is a complicated question because things such as the ability to regenerate your blood, assuming we go with the same mechanic, could also differ between the classes. So it's not simply looking at, okay, if his heal can do 100 points over 30 seconds and the other healer can do 100 points over 30 seconds. It is a more complicated, and thankfully, we can do more interesting things than simply look at one set of numbers and go that, no, these guys are equivalent, or one is weaker in one way and weaker in the other way. As always, it's about being a bit clever.
L'Oreal asks, looking at the Abbot and the Blessed Crow, the Abbot got quarterstaff skill. Is the Blessed Crow more mage/healer, fighter/healer?
Okay. Yeah, the Abbot has a little bit more on the melee side of things. He's not exactly melee for DPS because he does have just smite and he does have noose as well. The Blessed Crow is more of a mage type and less of a melee focus. It's more about the cauldrons and setting up your little deployables, which are a playstyle a bunch of you are probably familiar with, where you kind of set things down and make your little arrangement of things and cast spells on the cauldron to make the cauldron do stuff in an area and have some interactions between them based on their proximity. And so that's a little bit different. He has this focus specifically on that mechanic, whereas the Abbot doesn't have any sort of a deployable or anything. He's just running around and he's going to hit people and cast things and have more of a diverse role in that way.
And drink beer.
And drink beer, which makes it better at doing some of those things.
And what's really important about this to keep in mind, folks, is that we told you before the Kickstarter, during the Kickstarter, after the Kickstarter, that we weren't going with mirrored classes. Now here's a perfect example, right?
Yeah, those are very different.
Yeah, these three classes are in no way even close to being mirrored. These are classes with very different mechanics, obviously very different styles, and this is what you're going to see from us going forward. Not just with these folks, with other folks as well.
Juke Geo asks, will there be spells that heal allies and damage enemies? I assume you're asking about this trio.
Oh, of course.
Okay. Halsich, maybe this will be for fun. This is about the Blessed Crow. One of the sampled runes is Corpse Consuming Brew. How will it decide which corpse to consume? Will it be able to manage the corpses chosen with other modifying components?
Right now, the definition that just states that it's consuming them, and it's based primarily on proximity. If you have a certain number of them within range, based on the number of them that are in the radius, it scales its effect. There will probably be some other mechanics that go into that, and we'll see what modifiers we eventually implement. But right now, the base effect of that is just if they're in range, it eats them all, and then based on the number of them that it eats, it does an increase to the power of its effect.
There's a suggestion that we should patent Abbott Flail Ale. Okay. And they keep asking, so I'm going to continue to ask this. Rect 1 through 3. Just to be clear, these are hybrid healers / mages and not healers / melee, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
How are we on time, Genesee?
We are at 3:22.
Okay.
Okay.
So just a reminder, folks, at another 8 minutes, we're going to switch over to beta.
Silent Bob DK asks, can the hybrid healer of any form have any form of CC like Miss or Stun and they referenced Dark Age of Camelot there?
We haven't gone down that path yet. Will any of these guys, have crowd control abilities? We'll talk about that more as we get this class into development. Because it's a hybrid, I can, say with about 100% degree of certainty, it's not going to be one of the first classes we're going to put into the game. So, could we add different abilities, some CC? It certainly is possible, but it is not something we're focused on yet.
Yeah, these three specifically are not very control heavy because they already have to do damage and they already have to do healing. They have a lot to do. If they're also having to manage buffs and debuffs and control effects, that's going to make them even more complicated. So they might get, everybody will get a little bit of that, obviously, but probably not as heavy as some of the other things that we haven't got revealed yet.
And Angry Moose asks, will the Devout players have to specialize into healing or damage? Can they be a jack of all trades or choose to focus on damage or healing?
So being hybrids, they sort of do a little bit of both. You can kind of orient yourself towards one or the other, but since you are a hybrid, you need to be able to handle both of those. The Hellbound, I think, is the one that goes the hardest in one direction or the other because they are sort of a dual mode class, in that you can go into life mode and you can go into death mode, and you can do different things in each one, and swapping back and forth isn't necessarily always a great idea. So they tend to have a little bit more of that duality than the other ones. But as this class, you're not meant to go one route or the other. You are supposed to be in between, and you're supposed to be doing both of these things.
Grimsby12341, I think you just answered your question about the dark aspect and light aspect of the Hellbound and how that works.
Okay, hold that. Let me actually add something to what Ben just said. One of the things that people have asked us, and this really also started during the Kickstarter, was how can you make hybrids effective, right? Because people always, either say or complain, depending on which side of the argument you're on, that hybrids generally are not great classes in many, if not most, MMOs. And what Ben said here of you should be going both is really important, because that's one of the ways we can make them a viable class, right?
Yeah, that does have a lot to do with how to make hybrids good. Because in the instance where you have hybrids that are just not as good at DPS and not as good at healing, if this is the type of hybrid you're talking about, which we are, then you're just either kind of a bad healer or a bad DPS. And why wouldn't you just pick a real DPS or a real healer? So if you're able to do both of those things, and you're able to do them, more importantly, simultaneously, then you're not just picking one or the other. You're not just a poor version of something else. You're able to actually do more, and that makes up for that you're not doing as much.
Exactly, and that's really important for you guys to keep in mind, whether it's for this hybrid class or other hybrids that we will certainly be talking about over the lifetime of this game.
Okay, a question on how the healing works. R3YTX. Will the hybrid healers get normal heal spells like pure healers, or only be able to heal with special healing abilities when damaging enemies?
They have regular healing abilities. That you don't have to be damaging someone to heal. There are more abilities in these classes than in most of the pure healers. There's an exception to that, but we won't talk about it yet because we haven't revealed healers yet. For the most part, though, you will have a sort of a mix of both. So if you just see someone who's damaged, you can generally just heal them with just a heal. You don't need an enemy to be present to damage them to cause the healing to happen. But that is a way that we can incorporate, as we said, that sort of duality of, like, if you attack an enemy, you heal nearby allies and things like that. Those are a lot of the type of things that will help them able to do both of these at the same time.
I'm going to look for a last question. I have one or two to ask in the meantime. Cycles Dot asks, why would a group want to take a hybrid over a pure class, or what's the advantage of playing a hybrid versus a pure class?
I think we've answered that.
Yeah, you've kind of answered
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
If not, you can ask it in more detail on the forums.
They're asking about voting, so it might be a good idea to go over when will voting for the next reveal begin now.
Okay.
And
Right.
there's a lot of questions on when voting closes as well.
Okay. Well, obviously, voting on this reveal is closed. A new survey will be sent out today, and then the voting begins again on the next reveal. We're not going and just taking, and I think we covered this in
I think we did last time, but
last time as well. That each week it's a new survey. We don't want people to have to figure and try to, well, actually figure, there's nothing to figure out, or to be upset that, well, if they had known that their class that they voted for wasn't going to win, they would have voted for a different class, because that way it would have been the second one revealed. No, it's going to be a new survey every week. It's going to come out right after this kind of Q&A, and you guys will now go and vote on the next one of the now 9 to be revealed once again next week.
Okay, I'm looking for the last question. Here's the one before that. Are there going to be AoE healing spells, and if so, will they have a target cap?
God, we've been asked that so many times.
Yes.
Well, of course, there'll be AoE spells, and what we've said on the forums, and we said even during the Kickstarter, as of now, there are no plans to cap in the way that other games, have capped, and therefore, and look, we all know why. Well, I shouldn't say I know exactly why you're asking this question, but they're pretty sure why. There will be some limit on the amount of power, obviously, that can come out from the amount of power that you put into a spell. You can't say, well, I'm going to cast this tiny AoE and it's going to affect 3,000 people.
Yeah, there specifically are more stringent limits on this when it comes to healing, because of Zerg problems, right? If you have a heal that's just an AoE heal, it heals everybody. The bigger your group is, the more effective that heal is, and that it can't work that way, right? Damage, kind of, you can get a little more about that, because then it's worse against the Zerg. Like,
Yep.
It's worse for the Zerg, but for a group fighting against them, because it scales more. The more people it hits, that's generally going to wipe out big groups, but
Yep.
something that heals big groups is going to be problematic. So you have mechanics like in the Abbot here has an ability already that says it splits the amount of healing across the number of people that it heals. So the more people it hits, the more the power is divided among them, so it can't just provide an unlimited amount of heal that scales with the number of people.
And there are also things that we'll talk about down the road that I think will work very well with AoE. And I think we actually mentioned some of it with heal revision.
Yeah, we've talked
So-
about that here and there, but we'll get into more detail on healer-specific things when we get into actual healers.
Okay, 2 questions, and then we're gonna move on, guys. Cap'n, will the Blessed Crow need cooking-type ingredients to make different foods?
I don't know. We haven't really thought about that.
They are kind of item dependent in that the same way that the Abbot is going to be a little bit beer dependent. They're going to have some item dependencies. We haven't gotten into the details of that yet.
Crick asks, when will you update the lore becoming stories for these classes?
Update them. That means I got to write them. Yeah. At some point, certainly, each one of these classes, whether it's Max or I or somebody else, will write certainly becoming stories, for each of the classes. But as you can imagine, not a priority right now.
Okay, and we are at 3:31, so we should probably move on to the next section.
Oh, absolutely.
Let it
Yep.
repeat it. Okay, so Max, if you